Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. You'll get football talk and maybe you'll even get some information on what to do if you are ever confronted with a black bear.
Oh, we're just about to see his big ugly face on the screen, I think.
Who are you talking about, Gab or Stevie?
Oh, not Gab, Stevie. He was out walking the dog and he had a close-up with a bear a couple of years ago.
What happened, Stevie?
Fortunately, it scarpled because I didn't move.
Stevie's got loads of stories like this. Like one way the dog fell through ice.
Well, this is true.
He had to go and get
I
the
don't
dog.
want to give my address away, but I'll tend to.
Just have a calamity. That's
I leave my garage doors open generally during the day when I go out, and it's not been uncommon over the last 9 or 10 years that the bear's gone about there, and they've been in the garage before, but not actually when I pulled into the garage. So I came back down the drive and pulled into the garage, or I was just about to pull into the garage and it heard me and it came walking out because it was in at the trash cans, and it was a big one, and it just wandered around the house and wandered away into the woods.
Did you think he was annoyed with some of your takes on ESPN FC?
Could well have been. I don't know.
You know, they've been letting themselves in houses now. There's been some reports of them actually opening doors and letting themselves into.
See, that's why I put a keypad on mine. I don't know if I've never read a story of one yet that can punch a code in.
Well, let's hope you don't find out, right?
Anyway, that's enough.
We do have Gab and Stevie with us. First question.
Do you really believe that? You'd believe anything, wouldn't you?
No, honestly, I saw this in like one of the local.
By the way, and I've got
papers.
another bone to pick with you
Go on
the show. Why does your husband never tell you off? I mean, well, on a football.
What?
Well, every time we're talking about Serie A, you call it the Serie A.
The Serie A?
It's not, because I get told off when I came here by some very prominent people when I was calling
you can't say the MLS.
Well, I was calling it the MLS, and I got told off, and I said no, it's just MLS. Everybody else I've heard, including Mr. Marcotti, calls it Serie A. But you always put the in front of it.
I think I'm allowed.
It annoys the hell out of me. It's Serie A, not the Serie A.
No, you can't say the La Liga because then it would be the Liga. But the Serie A is fine.
Well, I'm beg to differ.
Gab,
If only we had somebody here.
Can I say the Serie A or not?
The Serie A.
I hate to contradict Craig, but Kay, you are allowed to say the Serie A.
You'd think I had an Italian last name and husband,
Sounds
right?
weird to me in English.
The Serie A.
You would think no, but it just simply comes from the. It simply comes from the fact that
You can say it in Italian.
it's pure grammar.
Okay.
Serie A simply means Series A. So you could say like top division, if you like, right? So you would say the top division. You wouldn't say, unless you're a freaking Muppet, the Major League Soccer, right? Simple as that.
Well,
So, Cristiano Ronaldo,
you can
would
put
you like
me.
to
You can
apologise?
categorise me, because when I first came here, I was calling it the Major Leagues. Maybe I was doing it to annoy. No, I don't do
Probably.
that. I don't. I never do that to annoy people.
All right, first question for Stevie. For the boys, is it time to start recognising Newcastle as a legitimate contender for top 4 this season?
Well, considering they're actually in the top 4 now, it would be rather silly to say no. And you've got to think also, come the next transfer window, they're as likely as anybody to spend some more money and be even stronger. So, absolutely.
Remember
Yeah.
that Spurs should have beaten Newcastle,
Yeah.
but Nottingham Forest we expected to beat Liverpool, according to Stevie Nicol in the show this evening.
I'll tell you what, you're taking over from Dan Thomas. Say one thing and you turn it into something else. I didn't say we should expect Forest to beat Liverpool at all. I said it's not as big a shock as first we thought. It's a surprise, not a shock. There's a bit of a difference.
Been sticking up for Liverpool today, hasn't he, Steve? Hasn't he, Craig?
I'm saying nothing.
All right.
So,
He had a good.
You having a
listen,
laugh?
He'd had a good day up to that point because Arsenal had dropped some points.
Correct.
And he was having a good day
Yes.
because he doesn't want to.
I was happy with that, I can assure you.
Yeah. I'm not going to suggest he doesn't want Arsenal to win the league, but he doesn't.
All right.
Because he's going to have to buy a huge, big shovel
Let me get a quick word from Gab on that. Newcastle, Gab.
Well, I'll give you more tomorrow on the Gab and Joe show because we have Newcastle's own Don Hutchinson filling in for Jules, and we will discuss it. Like you said, they're in the top four. They're obviously
what makes you think you're going to learn
one thing, and I've said this all along. But he's from there. When I want to know about teams from Ayrshire, I ask you, and when all right.
No, you shouldn't. I know
He'll
nothing
give me his
about them.
perspective. Look, I said,
I've been away from there for 40 years. The same as Don's been away from.
Yeah, but when he starts talking about Newcastle, the accent comes back out with Don.
I tell you what, this Gab and Jill's
I think it does.
This Gab and Jill's podcast doesn't have. How many absentees are you allowed on this show?
On a two-man show.
On a two-man show. If you're not away skiing, Gab, Jill's is away somewhere.
Look, it's entirely
Jules is away at Neymar's
parties. Fill-in hosts all the time, right? Yeah.
Anyway, the answer to the question is...
it's fine. It's a team effort.
It's a team. It's a competition between them to see who can miss the most shows. To answer your question, they have an outside chance. They played really well at Old Trafford the other week, which was a pretty good game. I think it was 0-0. They got Isaacs to come back. They got San Maximum to come back. They could spend money in January. They might. I don't know. They've an outside chance for sure. They're playing some good stuff.
All right. Okay. I was going to make a point about this Newcastle spending money thing, and I know it's easy to point to the Public Investment Fund, which is a sovereign wealth fund of Saudi Arabia, having all this money under management, and so of course, they can go and they can spend money left, right, and center. Even though they've told us that they're not going to do that, they're going to try to run it as a business and grow organically. My one concern, and the reason I actually believe them when I say they're going to grow organically, at least while Eddie Howe is there, Eddie Howe's record of spending large amounts of money when he was at Bournemouth, and when he did spend big relative to what Bournemouth could do, people like Jordan Ibe and whatnot, hasn't been great. I think he's comfortable with a certain profile of player. I don't think he wants to drop, a superstar in there. And you could argue, of course, Isak and Bruno Guimaraes are superstars, but not really that A-list. I don't think he wants to disrupt what he has and where he's going. So I don't think that's going to be a factor. I think if they finish top four, they'll be doing it with this group of players. Plus Alexander Isak whenever he's back from injury.
Yeah, so check out the latest Gab and Jules podcast. It's going to be the Gab and Don podcast to hear more about Newcastle. But we have another question, actually.
Sorry?
Gab and Don.
Yeah.
Don Gab podcast. That might be nice too. For Craig and Stevie, Miguel Almiron is on fire right now, but it's taken him 5 seasons with Newcastle to hit top form. In your experience as players, how do you adjust or what do you do differently to go from average/subpar to outstanding?
Well, in all fairness to him, there's a complete style change in the way they've played. There was a period with Benitez and Steve Bruce that pragmatism, and I'm being nice here, was the word of the day. And so for somebody who has got his skill set, it is difficult when a team is defending for most of the game. What we've seen as a gradual process here since they signed, and don't forget they first went out, Eddie Howe, they restructured their whole defence, basically. Lascelles was a captain, he doesn't get a game anymore. Trippier's come in, Target come in, although he's not playing at the moment. Botman come in. So they've sort of built in to the midfield, and now they're starting to have a grip of games. And they're playing with a great pace, they've got good passers of the ball, and he's starting to come into his own because they're starting to get on the front foot. I think that's a big help. I mean, it's soul-destroying if you're an attacking player and you're on the back foot for 70% of your game because you're defending. And generally that's what they did under the previous couple of managers.
And it can just be like that, Stevie, where it's the right manager and a different style of play that comes in and everything changes for players like that, in your experience?
Well, I think if you think of Almiron in MLS, not the MLS, the goal he scored today is exactly the kind of goal he was scoring in MLS. He walked past Langley and then put it past the goalkeeper. That's what he did when he was in MLS. And of course, when you join a team and all of a sudden, instead of picking the ball up 30, 35 yards from goal and doing your stuff, he's picking the ball up 35 yards from his own goal because they're sat behind the ball and they're defending, and he's got 60 or 70 yards to go before he gets anywhere near the goal. I mean, you talk about buying somebody who does one thing and then ask him to do the complete opposite. So no wonder and no surprise you didn't see the best of Almiron. Under Eddie Howe and this team, it's about going forward, and he's picking balls up a lot more often, certainly than under the previous managers, in the attacking part of the field. And so he's got the legs and he's got the ability to be one-on-one with defenders, as you saw today. Now, would he love to play against Langley every week? I'll bet he would. But at the same time, he got the opportunity and showed us exactly what he's capable of, playing in a side that goes forward.
Craig, how much did your grandson enjoy that Nottingham Forest victory yesterday?
I don't know. I would imagine a lot.
I did see how it was spelled. The producer's telling me I didn't read the question right, but the reason I didn't read it out because I didn't want to annoy you.
Oh, Notts County and Nottingham Forest. Yeah, that's an old one. People are just doing that on purpose now, but no, it was a...
They are doing it on purpose.
Yeah, of course they are. I think he was at the game. He would have... I mean, I was watching the scenes for Nottingham Forest, you know. It's anything to get the season going. A win against Liverpool, even though it's not Liverpool, it was still Liverpool that pitched up as being one of the best teams in Europe over the last 2 or 3 years. It was still the Liverpool that pitched up that just come off beating Manchester City. It was a big deal for Nottingham Forest. You know, for Stevie Cooper as well. I've talked about the sack and all that, but he signed a new contract. It's finding the right balance for him. He's chopped and changed that team so many times. It's a head scratcher for him. All these new players come in. What do? It's like all of a sudden you've worked with all these guys that have got you up. A lot of them loan players, but you've worked with them in a structure, and all of a sudden you have 20 odd new players. How the hell do I get the best out of every one of these players to find the right 11? And I think he got kind of somewhat of his answer at the weekend, as bad as Liverpool were.
Yeah, I mean, your grandson definitely enjoyed it more than Stevie did. Let's stay there, though. Let's stay at the bottom end of the table. Gab, who's in bigger trouble for relegation? Wolves, Leeds or Villa?
Oh, easy.
Oh, I think Wolves are easily in worse shape. I mean, I think it's something like it's like months and months until they've had like a centre forward score a goal. We know obviously about the ties between Wolves and Gesti Foot and George Mendes, and so, you know, you could look at it and say, well, in January they'll just get a whole load of Mendes clients in and they'll be fine. Sure, it's a possibility, but I think George Mendes also has other issues to deal with. He can't just go and worry about Wolves. And I think also at the same time, let's not forget, I think certainly Villa have a better squad, but both Villa and Leeds have wealthy, deep-pocketed owners who, if they do need to spend money, if they think it will make a difference to stay up, you know, both Nassif Sawiris at Villa and the people at Leeds United, I think they're both ready to go and do that if necessary. So I think that raises the bar even higher for Wolves.
I don't know about Stevie, but I have no real fears about Villa, to be honest with you. I think their team's a lot worse. They have a squad that they can pick from. They've got some. I know Coutinho and Buendia haven't performed well this year, but it might happen that if Ings and Watkins and that find their goal-scoring form, and 4 goals yesterday, I would be shocked if Villa were in that 3, shocked at the end of the season.
Stevie, who would you pick out of the 3? Who's in the most trouble?
I've got to go with Wolves as well. It almost seems as though they actually don't have a pulse. It almost seems as though they're just turning up and it's not going to happen, and there's no real heartbeat. There doesn't feel as though there's a heartbeat there. I would say Wolves are the ones in the biggest trouble.
Do you know, at one point last season, under Bruno Lage, they were the complete opposite. I mean, yeah, they were struggling to score, to get the goals, but they were organised. I thought they looked a more than decent outfit. In fact, at one point they were making a push for the top 4. Not that we're ever going to get there, but they were hovering around there. And I remember them going to Old Trafford. I think it was a draw, but completely outplayed. All right, not a great United side. Everything they were in that period from towards the end of the season until Bruno Lage getting sacked, and now is completely gone a 360. It has. And you've got to be really, really worried for them. People like Conor Cody, who might not be the best for, but he was, as Stevie went, it was a bit of a heartbeat there for them. All these guys, I worry for them, I do.
Gab, how would Inter messing up against
In the Serie A.
How would, well, but it is in the Champions League instead.
Oh, man.
How would the Serie A's Inter, how would Inter messing up against Pilsen go down in Milan?
Hey, Craig.
Champions League coming up this week.
Yeah, give me that, I'll read the question. I can read that without glasses. Go on, Gab.
He did say they might.
Well, I think it would be extremely disappointing for the Inter if they were to screw this up against the Victoria Pilsen. It obviously would go down terribly. It would go down terribly because, while people joke about, about Inter's ability to self-destruct over the years, and then, there's even, as even the club anthem makes reference to the craziness of Inter, and you can't help but love Inter despite the fact that Inter breaks your heart and blah, blah, blah. It gets really old really, really quick. And I think they're in a position now, especially now that that they're playing better, they control their destiny. So I think there's no margin of error. And I think if they do get knocked out, I think it's going to have a knock-on effect in the league as well. Because they've shown that they can do it, without two guys who I thought were critical to them this season, in Lukaku and Brozovic, both of whom have been injured. They'll be back at some point. So I think if they go out, it would really, really screw them up, and it could be the kind of screw up that really might even cost them a top 4 finish at the end of the season.
Stevie, we've seen this before, another variation of this. In fact, we've had Stevie's lovely wife on. Stevie, can you say purple burglar alarm? I hear Scots may have had a hard time with this.
Yeah. No, purple burglar alarm. Easy peasy.
Purple burglar alarm.
I love that you had to pause a bit between
Purple
burglar and
burglar alarm.
alarm.
Purple burglar alarm.
Too easy.
Do you know what I used to always love? There was a show with a detective from Scotland called Taggart.
Oh, yeah.
When I was growing up.
Murder.
There's been a murder.
There's been a murder here.
Taggart. That's old school.
Taggart. That really is old school. I'm aging myself now. All right, no problem.
Remember the Rockford Files? No,
Yeah.
we need to go.
I remember my mum watching the Rockford
Jim
Files,
Rockford.
but I don't
But
think I watched
Ironside.
it.
Ironside.
We're going way back now and just alienating everybody. So, Gab, it was
Not alienating anybody. We're on a history bonanza here.
Yep, and you can still catch some of these old shows if you have the right add-ons. Craig still watches some of them. Gab, it was national news a few weeks
that was the
ago.
last question.
It was national news a few weeks
Barney
ago
Miller.
when World Cup winner Frank
The
Leboeuf.
Waltons. Bonanza. Do you remember Bonanza? Holy smokes.
Bill and Ben, the Flower Pot Men.
The Waltons. Good night, John Boy.
Good night, Mary Ellen. Gab, excuse us. It was national news a few weeks ago when World Cup winner
Craig.
Frank Leboeuf visited. Oh gosh,
The Waltons.
you just said that.
Well, no, Craig. It is an important point about Bonanza. Is the youngest son is played by Michael Landon, who of course was in Little House on the Prairie. I always thought
Little
it was
House
weird,
on the
like,
Prairie.
Major star in 2 era-defining shows.
What
Yes.
about the Dukes of Hazzard?
And
Huckleberry
also that other
Finn?
weird show, Highway to Heaven, where he played an angel
Yes,
that
he did.
came back to Earth, and his friend with the beard and stuff, and yeah, that was a lesser known show, but still.
The littlest
big
hobo,
Michael
Flipper.
Landon fan.
What were the Clampets?
Right, we're moving on. Gab, I'll try again.
Right.
It
We
was
have a Frank Leboeuf related question, I
We do,
understand.
kind of. Gab, it was national news a few weeks ago when World Cup winner Frank Leboeuf visited my hometown, Copenhagen.
Oh.
They mentioned only World Cup winners and heads of state are allowed to touch the World Cup trophy. Is that true?
No, it's most definitely not true because I have touched the World Cup trophy, and though it might be surprising to some, I am not a head of state, nor have I won a World Cup. So no, it's absolute. I love it. It is. I can totally see it's the kind of thing that Frank might say, but no. All you have to do, if you don't believe me, I'm happy to post pictures on social to prove this. But if you happen to be from a country that's won a World Cup, and my country's got 4 of them at home, which is why we're letting somebody else enjoy these ones.
Oh, I was waiting for the excuse.
Well, they won't be making it 5 anytime soon.
What? That's fine. That's all right. As long as Germany don't win, don't pull ahead, that's fine. I'm comfortable just being behind Brazil and nobody else in the world.
Don't post that picture,
yes,
Gab.
no, that's
that
not
might
true.
be evidence against you.
It's not evidence. It's a fact. You can go to FIFA. FIFA have the spares. I think they only made like 15 World Cups, something like that, and they're running out of them, so they're gonna have to make new ones. And they still had a couple of them laying around when I was in Zurich a couple of years ago, and they're like, "Oh, you want to take a picture of the World Cup? Here, cash." You know,
So it's a spare.
Yeah, it's not true, basically.
Listen, the only way it was national news.
Well, it's not a spare.
The only way it was national news in Copenhagen,
It's
Denmark.
not a spare. They made 15 World Cups.
The only way it was national news in Copenhagen.
Let me just explain this because it'll confuse people. Go ahead, Craig.
No,
Try
I'm only
again.
going to say. There's a reason Frank Leboeuf packs a megaphone whenever he travels. It's so as he can go into the centre of Copenhagen, get his megaphone out and go, "World Cup winner Frank Leboeuf is in town, signing autographs."
The man who made it okay to be bald in France forevermore.
The first ever bald man in France, Frank Leboeuf,
Yep.
ever. He trailblazed. He was telling us the other day, the Frenchmen didn't want to shave their heads, but he trailblazed and just led the path, followed the path, beat everything down against it and shaved his head. And they all went, and the whole of France, 65 million of them, baldies, went, "It's okay to be bald, Frank Leboeuf's bald."
After advice from your friend Vialli, Gab.
Yeah, no, there's no question he wasn't inspired there, or, his other teammate Zinedine Zidane also, although I guess he didn't have that much of a choice. But basically, if you're into pointless World Cup trivia, as most people know, in 1970, Brazil became world champions for the 3rd time, which under the old rules meant they get to keep the trophy, the Jules Rimet trophy. So what FIFA did at that point is they commissioned a guy, an Italian guy, funnily enough, to go and make a whole load of World Cups. I think it's 12 or 15. And so they kept them in a big safe at FIFA headquarters in Zurich. 1974, they gave one of them out to Germany. 1978, Argentina got one, and so on and so forth.
Of course, God knows this.
And now they're running, like I said, out of World Cups.
Okay, more
So they're
trivia.
going to have to make more.
Fingers on the buzzers. What was the name of the dog that found the World Cup?
Lassie. Oh, I don't know.
I feel like Stevie's going to know this.
Scooby-Doo.
Archie?
Scooby-Doo.
It was Pickles, wasn't it? Wasn't it Pickles who unearthed the missing World Cup?
I've absolutely. Let me just tell you. Let me announce this.
I know that.
Let me announce this live.
all
I have
this old
absolutely
stuff,
no
Stevie.
idea what you're talking about. Right? Not a clue. Not a Scooby-Doo, as Stevie said.
Not a Scooby-Doo. Let's end it there then,
Correct.
shall we? This has taken quite the turn tonight on Extra Time, but you know what?
Well, it has. I've grown a beard since we've been on air. Look. That's how long you've been chuntering on.
And if you start
Serie A.
balding, don't worry, shave it all off. Frank Leboeuf said it's all right.
Yeah, Frank, yeah.
Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow.
Oh, I don't think we will after
well.
this.
Done well. Thank goodness for you
I'm not.
viewers.